Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Boone. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. Today, my guest is the legendary Manning Kimmel, co-owner and managing partner of Our Three Sons Broadcasting in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and home of WRHI. Manning is a legend in the broadcasting industry and in the way he lives his life, helping others and supporting the community. What a treat to call him my friend and have him as my guest. Now, Manning, I'm going to brag on you a little bit, so just stay tight.
Please don't.
You want me to do it, but I'm doing it. You oversee the programming and technical operations of OTS Media Group and host Straight Talk, a 30-minute public affairs and issues program. You began your 41-year broadcasting career in Wilmington, Delaware, before making your way to Rock Hill, South Carolina in 1984. That's when you partnered with Allan Miller to create OTS Media Group. You're involved with various and numerous nonprofits, including Christians to Feed the Hungry and the Rock Hill Economic Development Corporation, just to name a few. All right, here's your awards list. In 2014, you received the South Carolina Broadcasters Association Masters Award. In 2010, the Eddie Black Citizenship and Service Award from the York County Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the Rock Hill Businessman of the Year in 2006. Your wife, Sheila, 47 years, is a producer of Straight Talk, and you guys are both heavily involved in the community and big fans of the Winthrop University Eagles. Welcome to my show.
Woo, we got any time left for anything?
We do. I want to make all the time you need, my friend. Listen, I had the honor of meeting you and getting to know you through my husband, Watts Huckabee. And your friendship is one of the best gifts that he has given me since I made it here to Rock Hill, South Carolina. Married to Watts. So, welcome.
Thank you. I've had a lot of fun getting to know you, and I knew you really via text messages and pictures and videos, and only really got to see you in person here recently. So, welcome to Rock Hill.
Well, thank you for your rolling out the red carpet to welcome me to this area. You know, I've done some research on you, and I want you to describe your philosophy in life and in your profession. I really do admire the way that you give back to your community in which you live. Talk about that.
Well, you know, we are a community broadcasting company. We are locally owned here. We're not part of a corporate entity. My partner and I, we make all the decisions about everything. And as a community broadcaster, you're either involved in the community or you're not going to be successful in what you do. And my partner and I have been at this side by side for almost 37 years now. And that's an interesting story how that all started. But anyway, he's involved with a bunch of stuff. I'm involved with a bunch of stuff. It's always been that way. We do we give a lot of our time to these entities because it's what makes the community tick. You've been here probably not quite long enough to see what is happening in our downtown area. We have over $1 billion of new construction just in the downtown area. And that does not include what the Carolina Panthers are doing just outside of town, which is another $2 billion on top of that. Downtown redevelopment doesn't happen overnight. I mean, that's been 25 to 30 years of work by citizens of all sizes, shapes, and colors, willing to roll their sleeves up and say, how can we tackle this? How can we make this happen? And it all came together here about 5 or 6 years ago, and we are just absolutely on fire.
Yeah, it's booming.
So we've had our role in it, as have many, 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 many others. But if you don't do that, what's the purpose of you being here? I mean, you're here to serve the community. And if you're going to be part of the community, by God, you've got to give back to the community. And you do it by writing checks, and you do it by giving a lot of hours, a lot of time.
Is that what led you to broadcasting? Did you feel that need? Because really broadcasting is public service. And you started a long time ago and then made your way to Rock Hill. Talk about that. And you had an on-air name. I believe it was Tom Singleton, right? You changed it.
You want the true story about how I got involved in broadcasting?
Sure.
You don't believe this because you don't know it. When I came out of college, I thought that I wanted to be an attorney. And my father was a lawyer, and he was smarter than me. He knew doggone well that I was not cut out to be a lawyer, but he let me find out for myself. So I worked in a law firm for about 9 months. I did everything from answering telephones to learning how to do title searches, helping out with research on pleadings and interrogatories. And after 9 months, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. And here are all my peers going off into their fields of expertise. And my dad had heard about a place in Philadelphia, which is just north of Wilmington, Delaware, called the Human Engineering Laboratory. And I went up there for about 3 days, 3 or 4 days, and I did all these crazy kind of tests, building blocks, listening to stuff, word association, all this kind of stuff. And then you come back at the end of the week and they say, okay, here's what makes you tick. Here are your strengths and here are your weaknesses. So they said, now you could have gone to this law school thing and you would have gotten through it. But by the time you were 40, you would have hated it and been climbing the walls. And that's not what you want to be doing when you're in your 40s and you have a child and a wife and all that kind of stuff. So they went back down the list, try this, try this. Oh, there's this thing called broadcasting. Broadcasting? What's broadcasting? I never even thought about it. Went home and told that to my dad. He lit up like a Christmas tree because he knew somebody in the radio business. I went down there to the local station, a fellow by the name of Ewing Hawkins. He opened the doors, and as soon as I walked in there and I saw all that electronics, that's me. I'm in.
You're in.
And that started the process of me getting into broadcasting, getting my first job, part-time job, then full-time job, and then news director stuff. And then I wanted to get into owning the business. And my first ownership was in Western Maryland, small town called Cumberland, Maryland. Was there for about 6 or 7 years and decided I needed to get out of the north and get back to my roots here in the south. Ended up in Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is a whole nother story, and hooked up with my buddy across the hallway here, Allan Miller, and here we are.
I love that. Hey, so when you walked in and you started taking that assessment, did the guy go, you got a voice for radio? Because your voice just screams radio. When I first met you, like, I love this guy. I love his voice.
I don't remember that at all. They said, now, what are you doing here, young man? I said, well, I'm just trying to figure out what you do. This fascinates me. Well, you can hang, they just let me hang around, Nikki, for about 6 months. And they would work with me on, writing commercial scripts. And they said, why don't you try to write this little news story over here? And have you ever interviewed anybody over here? And here's how you make a commercial. And they really, it was just amazing the time that they gave me to learn this stuff. And had it not been for that experience, I doubt if I'd be here.
Right, right. Well, we've all had folks who've mentored us along the way. So that's a pretty cool story. So speaking of radio, you guys, WRHI, rich history, 75 plus years. What's the future of WRHI and radio in general, in your opinion?
Well, as far as WRHI and our sister stations, we've got 3 other stations to go with it. I see it as nothing but strong. We are in, without a doubt, the most growth-oriented community that you can imagine. And needless to say that when you have the Carolina Panthers coming in and $1 billion worth of development here and $2 billion worth of development there, and being 25 miles from a major city called Charlotte. Yeah. By the way, we're going to annex them into the South one day. We're going to pick them up. You can't help but see the growth. Our population, Nikki, when I came here in 1984, the population of York County was about 124,000 people. Wow. Right now, we're bumping 300,000 people. And it's just going up, up, up. So I see, this community being strong. I know that our company will continue to be there to serve. We are in a unique situation in that there are no other broadcasting companies in York County except us. We're it. There's a lot of them up in Charlotte, but as far as locally based companies, no, we're it. And radio in general, even though there have been those who say, oh, it's going to die because of television or it's going to die because of the internet. So wrong. If anything, all those tools have helped us grow what we're doing, because radio now, the modern day radio is right here. It's this thing, called a cell phone.
That's right.
And then you got the internet. It allows you to take your local station anywhere in the world. And I've had the advantage of traveling. I've been to China, I've been to Russia, and I listen to WRHI in China and Russia. Are you kidding me?
Right. Well, that just goes to show the way technology has changed, but also the importance of local.
Oh, yeah. And of course, we partner with our local communications company, Comporium, and our morning show, Palmetto Mornings, is also on Comporium Channel 103. So
Right.
with good-looking ladies like you on there, everybody can see them and say, good, I'm glad we can look at her and not look at Manning.
Hey, I'm here to help if you need some help. But it is interesting. I think that a lot of folks would say that about television too. Well, it's dying, local news is dying. But I just always feel we play an important role in our communities. And obviously OTS Media Group knows the importance of that and is worked upon to grow and serve your community even more as the future changes with technology. Really, I think that's the key.
Well, and you're also seeing a change in how people are getting their information.
Oh, of
It
course.
used to be this thing called the newspaper. Well, that's pretty much gone by the wayside.
Right.
And so people now are getting a lot of their information, off of social media.
Oh, yeah.
And internet platforms. I mean, television is on this thing called a radio, which is also a TV. So people are getting their information electronically. And the important thing is we've got to be accurate in what it is that we're presenting.
Right.
Because most of social media is just a bunch of garbage. It's just all mixed up.
Well, it does put a lot of false information out there, which is disheartening. So I want to talk about what are some of the lessons that you've learned in your industry and in life. I mean,
well, as far as the industry,
you've been around a while, but you are very mature and have a wealth of knowledge.
In any business, if you're going to be successful, you got to be honest. The bottom line is you got to be honest. You can't try to pull a fast one on a client or somebody in the community. You have to be responsible in terms of the information that you're presenting to make sure that you put both sides out there. Let the people be the judge of what's right and what's wrong. You've got to do that. You also have to keep up with the changes. If we had not kept up and spent the millions of dollars we have on technological changes, we wouldn't be here. I mean, and we have invested heavily in new towers, new transmission systems, all this internet stuff, apps, you just have to. What was it Lee Iacocca said, the former chair of Chrysler? You either lead, follow, or just get the heck out of the way.
Yeah. Hey, so what are some of the coolest interviews you've ever had? I noticed you interviewed a lot of political leaders, and Congressman Ralph Norman, I know, comes on often, and Senator Lindsey Graham. But is there anybody that comes to mind when you think about that was a cool interview, or I'm glad I had that experience? Like I got to meet Tom Cruise. I mean, I could just say that, but I don't know if that's really cool or not. But in our line of work, you do have some pretty neat experiences.
You do. The one that strikes me now, the show you're referencing, Straight Talk, has been on the air 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year for 37 years, right? So we had all sizes, shapes, and colors come along the program. The one that always sticks out in my mind, do you remember a name of David Duke?
I interviewed him.
Well, David Duke, the former Grand Wizard of the KKK, was a presidential candidate.
I remember.
In whatever it was, the late 80s or early 90s.
Yes.
And he came to Rock Hill to be interviewed, and we do the show at a local restaurant. And so we had promoted the fact that David Duke would be on the show that day. That morning at about 9 o'clock, the owner of the restaurant calls me and says, "Man, what in the heck is going on in here? We haven't even opened the place and it's full." And he said, "Who's coming out here?" And I told him David Duke. He said, "What?" I said, "Yes, David Duke is coming out there." Well, I immediately went out there to do what I could do to try to, pant down the crowd. So I got there and it was like a carnival. I mean, the people were all over the place. So I set my gear up and the next thing you know, all these television cameras come in because all the Charlotte media wanted to come down and get a dose of David Duke.
Right.
So then the next thing I noticed is a state police caravan coming up the road. And thank God they came through the back entrance to the restaurant. And in walks this impeccably dressed young man who I thought was a Philadelphia lawyer, but it was David Duke. We sat down and had a very interesting conversation. And if I didn't know that he was the former Grand Wizard of the KKK, I would have thought he was just a run-of-the-mill guy. But quite frankly, I could never take off the visual image of a white hat on his head. But Anyway, that was the most memorable interview I think I've ever done, just because of who he was and the ruckus that he created before the show even began.
Right, right. I actually interviewed him too, and there were people to show up at the television station also wanting to see him, and it was very memorable, that is for sure. All right, so we are gonna wrap this up just for this part because we could talk for days, but I want to thank you for this conversation, and we're going to talk again next time about a different topic, one that surrounds your family and Pearl Harbor and this book. So, do you want to tell just really briefly what we can expect in our next conversation, or do we want to just leave that out?
So, the subject of that book, and probably hundreds of others, is a fellow by the name of Admiral Husband Kimmel, who was Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. fleet at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. He was my grandfather.
Right.
And what we'll talk about is our family's struggle for what now is 80 years to try to get the historical record corrected. So,
I look forward to that. I know our audience is going to enjoy that. We have so much more to get to in the coming months with you, Manning. Man, what a treat. You're just a treat. To learn more about Manning Kimmel and OTS Media Group, you can check out their website and Facebook pages. I've included that information in the description. Manning, thank you so much. We could just talk for days.
I enjoyed it. A lot of fun.
Thank you. Folks, that's going to do it for this edition of Conversations with Nicole. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have a great day.